Okay, Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome back to our weekly Prophetic Interaction Halaqah. Today we have Abdurrehman, and alhamdulillah we are here to learn about how the Prophet ﷺ interacted with others and how we can show love back to him, inshallah. So I hope you all benefit from this talk, and without further ado, we'll have Abdurrehman talk.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, before we we'll start off with a recitation of the best of words, the words of Allah, the Quran. Inshallah, we'll just be going to the first ayahs of Surah Al-Kahf, and then we'll start the talk, inshallah.
You can turn off the mic.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا حسنا ماكثين فيه أبدا وينذر الذين قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا ما لهم به من علم ولا لآبائهم كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم إن يقولون إلا كذبا فلعلك باخع نفسك على آثارهم إن لم يؤمنوا بهذا الحديث أسفا إنا جعلنا ما على الأرض زينة لها لنبلوهم أيهم أحسن عملا وإنا لجاعلون ما عليها صعيدا جرزا أم حسبت أن أصحاب الكهف والرقيم كانوا من آياتنا عجبا إذ أوى الفتية إلى الكهف فقالوا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. So inshallah, for those of you that have been coming the past few weeks, we were talking about the basic prophetic interactions, and we touched upon a few things. We talked about his interactions with his family members. We talked about his interactions with companions. We talked about his interaction with children. So we covered pretty much most of his interactions. There's one lesson that kind of ties into all of these. And as you'll see that all the prophetic interactions are kind of pretty much connected. The idea is the same, being compassionate, being understanding towards others, and treat others the way you want to be treated. And also a true, sincere reflection of who someone is pretty much based on how they are behind closed doors. But one important part also is humility and being humble. If you look at the example of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was literally the Prophet of Allah. So let's be honest, if anyone has any right to boast or any right to show off, it's pretty much the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? This best of people to evolve from, best of person. It's a blessing and a means of guidance to humans. But yet, despite his virtue as an individual, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was still humble to the point where we have numerous narrations about not only physical humility, but also humility in his behavior. What do I mean by physical humility? Can anyone give me a guess? What does physical humility mean? Any guesses? Physical humility. There's humility in the sense, yes, kind of it ties into that point as well, but I'm thinking of something else. What is something that shows humble and being like someone being humble and having humility, but it's a physical action?
Not talking
Good, that's one. What else? So he said not talking too much. Since you mentioned that, what's another speaking characteristic that shows that someone's humility and their humbleness?
Not yelling.
Good. Not being loud in the way they speak. Not being blunt and being softer in the way they speak. There's numerous narrations of where Rasulullah physically was showing his humility, where he would literally be bent over to the point where he would be looking down, or like, his beard, like we're going to talk about, would be touching his animal's neck, the horse that he was riding, when he was going on wars, when he was coming back. The idea is when someone's egotistical, when someone, as you look at the example of Luqman alayhi salam, he told his son what? In the few verses that he mentioned, he said to not walk the earth with a puffed chest. Right? Long story short, he said, do not walk the earth with a puffed chest. Now, if I walk with my chest like this, and I think I'm macho man and all this, basically, it's one way or another, most likely it's going to show that I am a bit carried, I have too much gas in my head. I'm a bit carried away with the way I am. So that's why it said to not literally, physically, and also metaphorically, to not walk the earth with a puffed chest. What better example than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Since it is prophetic interactions, we can give you one very simple example. And I know you guys had a seerah series. So you guys know about the war that was won by Muslims in Mecca with no bloodshed, right? So Rasulullah sallallahu, long story short, you have an individual who's leading an army. You have someone who's a conqueror almost, right? In a sense, they're taking over the land. You have someone that is leading a massive army, almost tens of thousands of Muslims. Us as humans, even in the capacity that we have right now, if we even get like maybe 5 people that follow us, we get this gas in the head and we think we're Napoleon, right? We think we're this, we think we're that. But this was a person who had tens of thousands of people, and what? He went to this place that they were gonna, they were ready for war pretty much. But guess what happened? No bloodshed, no nothing, and they still were victorious in the way that they took over the land. At the same time, if you look at current examples right now, how many people, when they are conquerors, when they take over something, when they win wars, they get gassed up and they start doing things. They take people as war slaves, this and that, whatever the example is. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam let all of them go free. Yes or no? No bloodshed, no nothing, and he still was able to win, and he did not let it get to him. No rose petals, no this, no that. If anything, he would tell his companions on the way there, on the way back, he would tell them to make remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now this is someone we're talking about who's leading an army. Why do I mention this? Humility, humbleness. In a position of authority, which we talked about 2 weeks ago, we talked about having authority, talked about what happens when people get authority, whether it's at home, when it's outside. They let the gas, as we say, get to their head, and they let that authority, that power, make them make decisions that are not the most sensible decisions, make decisions that are not exactly proper decisions, or decisions that benefit them, not things that are actually properly, they sit down and think about it, there's logic, wisdom behind it. No. They think about things that benefit them or things that are going to show their power, whatever the case is, and they make that decision. Rasulullah was still despite his authority, leading an army, bloodshed. It's different now. Back then too, this is how they took over lands. This is how they settled their disputes. They had war, and they were a bit more physical. Fortunately, now we're a little bit more soft, and times are different too. We have different ways of going about things. So we don't have to necessarily go outside and have war with everyone. It's different time, different solution, different ways to go about things. It's a lot quieter now. So despite his authority, despite his position, despite everything, he still what? He would let everyone go, and he was not letting that ego get to his head. That's number one. That's his humility and his humbleness in regards to companions. Now, if anyone knows that they're going to Jannah too, too, Rasulullah, right? And of course, the 10 individuals were granted the blessing of Jannah in this world. But the messenger of Allah, it's chosen from Allah to be messenger. Allah's not going to throw his messenger into hellfire, right? Allah protect us all from that. But despite knowing that he was going to go to heaven, despite knowing that he himself was going to be saved, how many examples do we hear of Rasulullah crying where his beard would be soaking in water, standing in Allah where his feet would get messed up, crying to the point where you would like shaking, out of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now this is a messenger of Allah. He's been given the glad tidings of Jannah. He knows he's going to go to Jannah, but yet he still fears the punishment of Allah. He still fears what's going to happen to him. He still fears the hereafter. That humility and humbleness is not only towards individuals. When you stand in salah, you stand in front of who? There you go, someone said, you stand in front of who? Your Lord, Allah. You stand in front of Allah when you're in salah. Oftentimes you're distracted. Oftentimes we think, salah, whatever, just get it over with and we go about it. When you stand in that position, you're being humble and you have humility towards Allah. Right? You're literally putting, as a human, you're putting your highest part, my face is my identity. If you guys see me, chances are you might not recognize me from my body, you'll recognize me from my face. Right? This is my identity, this is what differentiates me from other people. So this is my ID, my identity. Yet my highest point of my body, my forehead, I am putting it on the ground to my Lord. Right? This idea of being humble and humility transfers into other ideas as well. It's not only with your interactions with people, which we're going to emphasize a little bit more about, but at the same time, it's also standing in front of your Lord. Not to say that you're being arrogant towards your Lord, not to say that you're saying that you are astaghfirullah better than so and so, or you're better than astaghfirullah Allah or something. Like Fir'aun or of that nature. It's more so just understanding the value and the importance of salah, which we also talked about last week. You don't do these actions just to, let's get them done. You do them to understand the blessings that come behind it. When I read Quran, yes, I'm reading Quran, but if I don't know what I'm reading, I'm just reading random Arabic words. I'm just reading random Arabic, alphabets put together and that's it. You read Quran to understand what you're reading. You pray salah to understand why you're doing it. You do these actions or you fast because you need to understand all these things and the benefits that come with these things and the ideas that are behind these actions. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just because Allah said it's enough or to do this is enough of a reason to do so. But we should also understand the importance of virtue behind it, so perhaps that will allow us to be more sincere in our actions. Back to the point of being humble and having humility. So first and foremost, not being arrogant towards our fellow Muslims, self-explanatory. Not being arrogant or being humble and having humility towards non-Muslims as well. It's not just because it's humans in general, right? Oftentimes people will talk about, hey, if it's Muslims, you treat them like this. If it's a non-Muslim, you treat them like this. No, humans, period. Do Muslims play benefits over non-Muslims in other situations? Yes, of course. Our priority should be helping our Muslim brothers and sisters. At the same time, our priority also should be towards giving da'wah to non-Muslims. That's a whole other topic for another time. It varies case by case. But being not arrogant towards humans in general, being humble and and having humility when standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also important, like we mentioned with the other things, this makes your way of life a lot easier. And if you look at the example of Rasulullah, if you look at the example of the companions, they were overly cautious in the actions that they did. What do I mean by this? When you do a good deed, or when you do a sin rather, you hide that sin, yes or no? That's how it should be. I would hope everyone's hiding their sins, not going around boasting about it, right? But when you do a good deed, you don't really, hide that good deed. If people find out, they find out. They don't find out, they don't find out. Cool, whatever it is. It is what it is. But the companions used to hide. We talked about this. They used to what? I want to hear someone say. The companions used to?
Used to hide from the toxic.
No, they used to hide their good deeds like people hide their. There you go. They used to hide their good. Who said that? You and I heard someone else. Yeah. Used to hide their good job. They used to hide their good deeds like people would hide their bad deeds. You don't want people finding out about your sins. So people would still, the companions would hide their good deeds in the same nature. Why? If I tell, or if Ahmed, tells me something about him, I'm going to compliment him. Or if he tells me a compliment, I might get carried away. Oh my God, he complimented me. Thank you, Ahmed. It feels nice. I might start getting arrogant. I might start becoming, egotistical. And one thing leads to another. It's not an exaggeration. You look at things, drugs example. If you look at bad friends, if you look at this and that, or getting away from the deen, every single thing does not start off with one big jump. In some case scenarios it might, but the main thing is that it leads one thing to another, to another, to another, to another. Yes or no? Right? So, this element of being egotistical is not just one night overnight. If someone is, may Allah guide them, but that's kind of crazy, but step by step. So they used to hide their good deeds the way people would hide their bad deeds, so that way they don't get carried away. In the same way, they would be overly humble and have humility as well. Whether it's someone that's young, whether it's someone that's old, they would make sure that they don't have any element of ego in their actions. Now, how does one apply this in their routine? Nowadays, just because this is another point. That just what is a factor of why someone would be think that they're better than someone else? Does it make sense? Why would you think that you're better? Why would I think that I'm better than you? What's like some possible scenarios?
People that, let's just say they pray 5 times a day.
Amazing. Someone that prays 5 times a day may think that they're better than someone that doesn't. What else?
Someone also studying and gaining knowledge of the deen.
I like that. Hold on to that example because that example has something else I want to talk about. But very good example. Very good.
Someone that wears hijab versus doesn't.
Beautiful. Thank you. What else? You guys give really good examples. That also has another point I want to talk about.
Sometimes, like, you might carry yourself a certain way, but, like, you be like let's say a sister, me and a sister, and then she does a certain thing, and then I'm going to think I'm better than her because, I'm calmer or whatever. But obviously, I just ruined myself in thinking that.
Beautiful. All these things are, long story short, they have this idea now of only Allah can judge. I disagree with that idea. Because we've been told that if someone is doing something wrong, that we should advise them, not judge them, but we should advise them if something's done publicly. But ultimately, Allah knows what's in the hearts. I do not know what's in the hearts. I only know what's apparent, right? Allah knows what's in the heart. That person that's giving, 5 times a day and they wake up to Hajj, this and that, maybe they're doing it to show off. But that person who's barely making his 5 prayers, and is maybe skipping out on some things, perhaps Allah knows best. It could be better in the eyes of Allah because that person is doing it sincerely for the sake of Allah, whereas the other individual is doing it for other people. That's number one. That's what you talked about. The Sister back mentioned about people that are studying. Those that are studying, those that have proper understanding of the Deen, proper knowledge of the Deen. Wallahi, I swear by Allah, I have not seen one person who has that sincere understanding of the Deen that is not humble, doesn't put their head down on the ground. What do I mean by this? They literally, does not matter if a child comes to them, does not matter if an adult comes to them, they bow their head metaphorically, not literally. They literally are humble with everyone. They do not think that knowledge is getting to or they're better than everyone. And also, God forbid you call someone a sheikh or something, it's annoying. They don't want to hear it. Allah Barik, for example, in Brooklyn we have, probably watching this right now, Sheikh Muhammad Badawi, right? I love him. If he's watching this, I love you, right? But he literally, wallahi, I don't care what anyone says, he's a sheikh in my eyes, right? He studied Quran, man, But if you call him sheikh, he's like, nah, just call me bro, And it comes out, and that love for them comes out of your heart, number one. Number two, they understand that knowledge can be taken away in the eyes of Allah, and they understand that being humble is a very, very big thing in Islam. There's no one is going to enter Jannah even if they have a mustard seed worth of arrogance in their hearts. You know that hadith, right? A mustard seed. You seen a bagel? Right? See those poppy seeds on them? Even smaller than that. Someone that has even that much arrogance, no Jannah. Right? May Allah protect us from that. Back to the point, someone who has knowledge, they may think they're better than someone because they have that. That may be a reflection of their sincerity of the knowledge, but at the same time, that does not matter. Because someone who knows all the hadith books and this and that, but they don't abide by it, they don't follow it, does that mean anything? They know all the books of hadith, this and that, and the Quran, but they don't pray their salah, they don't do this, they don't fast. Is that better, or is it better that someone that doesn't know all the hadith, doesn't know all the Quran, but they fast and they pray and they do the obligatory actions? What's better? The second one. So that is not an element for someone to feel as though they're better than someone, even though they may. That's not for Allah to understand. You mentioned hijab as well, right? Some people, they may do one thing that's obligatory, and everything else, khalas, I'm doing one obligatory thing, everything else I could do haram, it's my one way, out of jail ticket. That's not how it works. Everything, of course, in the eyes of Allah. Is it important that we advise? Yes, we talked about this 2 weeks ago as well, that if you see something, you should advise, even if it's your family. But you don't embarrass other people. You don't think you're better than others. And when you think you're better than others, then your advice becomes arrogant. Your advice sounds like you're coming at them. And one thing leads to another, and that's things that we talked about previously as well. Another thing comes to mind in regards to having that arrogance, or about the person that has that knowledge. You mentioned, or we were talking about the advice. We were talking about this. I think think it was a few weeks ago, when it comes to advising people. Lost my train of thought a little bit. But when you advise someone,
I remember. I think it
yes.
was when someone comes to you and they don't know something basic.
Yes, thank you. Wallahi, on the dot. But thank you, Wallahi. I appreciate it so much, man. When you come to someone and you think that automatically they will know everything, right? This small, simple thing, there's multiple reasons behind it as well, right? Well, that comes back to your point about having knowledge. For example, you guys know how to pray, yes or no? Something basic you guys learn, yes or no? You guys know fasting, all these things, right? Simple things that we know. Someone may come to the masjid, they might have been a revert, they might have not grown up in an Islamic household in terms of a practicing religious household. They may have separated from the deen, they may never learn the deen. Whatever the case is, whatever factor it is, it's not for us to worry about. That person came to us for help. But if you have the arrogance in you, you may have turned them away from the deen. And this is why I'm talking about having humility and being humble. Let's present this scenario, right? Someone comes to me, Abdurrehman, I don't know how to pray. What's wrong with you? You don't know how to pray. This is the basic thing we learn. Blah, blah, and degrade him, demean him. And one thing leads to another. And perhaps he just leaves the masjid, doesn't come back, and his love for Islam is out the window. Not only did that person, that could have been my source of hasanat, right? Immense hasanat, and we talked about this in Jumu'ah today too, that's why I came late, I'm sorry, Khadija again, right? We talked about sadaqah jariyah, right? If I help someone, now every time they pray, I get reward for it. Why? Because I was the one that helped them. Granted that it was from Allah, right? All credit due to Allah, but I was the one that helped them do so, or whoever it was that helped them do so. That person will get the reward, I will get the reward for it as well, and at the same time, neither one of our rewards take away from each other. That's number one. So that source of good deeds, out the window for me, right? Number two, if you turn someone away, so instead of getting good deeds, I turn that person away from Islam. I turn that person away from the deen. I turn that person away from the masajid due to my arrogance. That will be a source of sayyat for me, and it will fall onto your head. It will fall onto your head. So not only are you not getting good deeds, you're missing out on your opportunity for good deeds, but you're getting sins for it as well. Now, the reason why I mention this is because these small things, we overlook them. We don't pay attention to them. We don't look at the bigger picture. And I know everyone says it's corny, look at the big picture, look at this, look at that, but it's true. That's how Islam works. One small thing, big reward. One small thing, big sayyat. Big sins. So make sure that you focus on being humble, having humility, and this wallahi will make your way of life easier. It will be a source of hasanat for you. And honestly, it just makes keeping up with being egotistical there's always going to be that one person that one-ups you. There's always going to be that person that is better than you. There's in terms of perhaps credentials, perhaps accomplishments. Doesn't matter. You're doing it for the sake of Allah. You're doing it to be humble. Doesn't matter whoever has what. But if you have the element of having ego, whatever it is, not only will it ruin your quality of life, not only will you go nuts because, like I said, there's always that one person better out there than you. They always say whatever buy something, there's always that more expensive thing out there. That your person, someone has more credentials than you. Or if they don't have more credentials, they may have something that you don't have, right? Then you start looking at that. Then you go from here to there, and it'll drive you insane. So it ruins your quality of life. You lose out on opportunities to get good deeds. You lose out on opportunities to get hasanat. You lose out on opportunities to guide people. You lose out on opportunities to make friends. You lose out on opportunities to do good, period. At the same time, all you get is sayyat on yourself. Not only in the sense of, maybe you misguided a person, or perhaps, you turn this person away from Islam, or you badmouth a Muslim, or arrogance in Islam, period, is a sin. So this is the importance and the emphasis behind having, being humble, having humility. And look at the best examples of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And also being humble when you stand in front of Allah. What do I mean by this? Is understanding that, the importance of turning to your Lord. Understanding, and unfortunately a lot of people or a lot of speakers will make this, I don't call it a mistake, but they will make this thing where they talk about either the punishment of Allah only, or they talk about the reward of Allah only. It's important that we realize there's two ends of the spectrum. As much as there's Allah's punishment, there's even more mercy. But that does not mean that punishment is not there, right? You choose which one you want to get, right? But you choose it through your actions. But it's not all rainbows and sunshine. I could do whatever I want. I can go and do all the drugs, do all the haram things, and khalas, come to the masjid, pray Aisha, and that's it. I'm good. It's my get out of jail ticket. No, that's not how it works. It's important that you understand that there's two ends to the spectrum. So make sure you be humble with Muslims, non-Muslims. Understand that, the reason why I'm talking about the two ends of the spectrum is Rasulullah ﷺ was standing in front of Allah, literally crying, shaking, making sujood for hours on hours, to the point where his feet would get messed up, his body was fatiguing, whatever it was, his beard would be drenched in tears. How many times do we cry? One tear, oh my God, one tear, okay, let me take out my phone, take a picture, Snapchat, that's it, right? If they posted the picture, oh my God, crying, I'm remembering Allah right now, and that's it. Put the timestamp on it, put a little sheet on the background, and call it a day. No, that's not how it works. So making sure that, of course, sincerely always, right? Standing and understanding the importance. These stories you hear about people in Jahannam screaming, crying out for people to get water, for them to get water. That Allah has made this impermissible for those that are in Jahannam. It's made them impermissible for those. They'll be screaming out for this. Pain receptors, right? For those of you that are medical, anyone that's doing med, amazing. You guys, I'm doing engineering, so I'm not too well versed in this stuff. But your skin has pain receptors, right? When those pain receptors burn, what happens? Come on, guys. I'm an engineer major.
To answer the question.
I should have known this. What's up?
I said you become numb.
Yeah, no, you don't feel anything in it because your pain receptors have burnt, Hold on, let's say you don't feel anything. When you go to Jahannam, Allah forgive us for all our sins and protect us from this. When your pain receptors burn, you're given a new set of skin so you can feel that pain again. And this is nothing. Drinking, pus, all these things, eating, fruits that are harmful, all these things. You can't even imagine, right? May Allah protect us from all of these things. There's that. And understand that one also has a chance of going into that. May Allah protect us, but it's applicable, right? At the same time, there's also Jannah, rivers flowing of honey. Whatever you want, on the spot you got it, right? It's something you want. All the beautiful descriptions of gardens where you don't have to pray, everyone's happy and healthy. There's no sort of filth, no nothing. Everything is clean. Everyone's happy. Whatever you want, you get it. And the best of blessings, being able to see Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. May Allah grant us that blessing. Say Ameen. Right? When you go to Al-Firdaus, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, you'll be able to see Him. And people want to make sujood. Allah will say no. You had your time to make sujood in the world, or to make ibadah in the world. You're good enough. You've done your part. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy. So there's two ends of the spectrum. Both are applicable to this. Why was Rasulullah ﷺ crying? Because he knew of these two ends of the spectrum. He knew that these two things are present. And that even though he's a prophet of Allah, the punishment of Allah is still present. The wrath of Allah is still there. And no one knows, I don't know for certain what's going to happen to me. You guys don't know. May Allah grant us the best. But we don't know for certain until we've passed away. We do our best to prepare for it in this dunya. And of course, you cry in front of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. One sincere tear can extinguish all of Jahannam, right? So, having that humility when standing in front of Allah, having humility and being humble towards your fellow Muslims makes your life easier, like we talked about last time as well. Being compassionate, like Sister Khadija mentioned, understanding others, like the sister mentioned, not being arrogant because you have knowledge, because you wear the hijab, because you pray. All these things, keeping yourself down to earth. Not only is it of course, easy in terms of quality of life, but it's a good deed as well. Having that humility, and at the same time, trying to go a little bit above and beyond when doing so, right? Some people may say, "Oh, bro, you're doing too much." We say like, "Yo, you're dragging this one, right? You're doing too much." No, you have to be outwardly more humble and being more humble and having more humility. Because if I don't push myself to do more, I might get dragged back into my ego. I might get dragged back into my desires. I might get dragged back into whatever bad it is that I'm doing. So when it comes to protecting yourself from sin, when it comes to protecting yourself from being egotistical and arrogant, when it comes to protecting yourself from any bad, you should push for that extra level. There's nothing wrong with it. If someone feels like you're dragging it, boo-hoo, let them deal with it. Go kick rocks. Don't matter, right? You do your best to protect yourself from it, and it's always better safe than sorry, right? Better safe than sorry. So go above and beyond when it comes to hiding sins, being humble, and you'll notice that it'll change your quality of life, like you mentioned with the previous characteristics. And at the same time, it's the example of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, following the sunnah, and at the same time, no one enters Jannah when they have arrogance in their heart. So may Allah protect us from that. May Allah make it easy for us. May Allah accept from us. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to be humble and accept our humility. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to follow the example of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The floor is open to questions, comments, concerns, complaints. Anything? Questions? cameras there. No? Anyone want to take? Oh
I
yes.
have a question.
What's up?
So there's been like many times where I've come across people that have done something that's like haram, and I like want to advise them, but I kind of stop myself from doing so because of how they'll take the situation, or how they're like they might think that I'm judging them. So what kind of advice can you give for that?
Present me a scenario if you don't mind. Because
I don't have a specific one in mind.
so again, it comes down to how you do it. There's three things one should do when seeing bad. First and foremost is you stop it physically if you can. Number two is you stop it verbally. The last one, number three, is that you would disagree with it in your heart, and that's the lowest level of iman, like the hadith mentions. That's that. After that, doing so in a way, like for example, one may think that you're trying to judge them in the way that you speak. We mentioned this, I don't know if you were here or not, we were talking about when or how to approach someone when it comes to advising them. You do so by starting off with compliments, right? Like for example, let's say I'm doing something wrong, right? Ahmed comes and corrects me. Let's say I'm praying my salah wrong. I'll present a scenario, right? I'm praying my salah wrong. Ahmed comes to me, he's like, yo, mashallah, I see you in the masjid, proud of you, bro, keep up the good work. By the way, I noticed something. Automatically, that compliment is going to get me and him on the right foot, right? Now, I know he won't be judging me. Also, the scenario that I put myself in, if Ahmed comes and corrects me in front of 20 people, or he comes and corrects me over here right now, maybe his intentions are good, but if I feel some sort of way about it, it's a little bit understandable, right? Of course, I should understand, and people watching should understand that humans, we make mistakes, no problem. But if I feel some sort of way about Ahmed correcting me in front of 100 people, makes sense. Perhaps you could have took me to the side, right? Perhaps you could have done this. So if you want to advise someone, if you want to make them feel like you're not judging them, number one, pull them to the side, most importantly. Having that privacy is going to make them more comfortable and more receptive, and there's no additional factors and bias that may make them question your intent. You may be impressing this person, maybe doing that, nothing. Because you're private. That's number one. Number two, when it comes to speaking to them, start off with compliments. Start off by saying, hey, I see that you're doing this good, right? In some situations it may be applicable, in some situations it may not be applicable, right? For example, Ahmed comes and tells me, yo, mashallah, I've seen that you've been praying your salah. Or someone that is making a mistake in Quran, for example. Mashallah, yo, you got a nice voice. You know, you've been reading pretty good. I see you've been making progress, but I'm proud of you, right? This automatically starts off on the right foot. After that, then you put your, the issue that you have to address, you put it in a way that's blunt. The scholars say that if you can, you should speak bluntly. Be indirect in the way you speak if the person, or if you know that the person will catch your hint. If you don't know, or if you don't think the person will catch your hint by being indirect, then you can be blunt. But even in being blunt, you should still be soft with your words. Example, Ahmed tells me, or me and Ahmed are outside in a conversation. Let's say I'm praying my salah wrong. Yo, by the way, I was reading this, I was reading this article, I saw this guy, he was praying, and he was doing this wrong, and so I'm like, what do you think? Should I maybe go up to him and tell him? Be indirect, hey, I saw this guy doing this, but in reality it's that guy that's doing it, Don't lie, of course, but you should be indirect in the way you speak. But if Ahmed knows that I won't catch the hint, then Ahmed will be like, yo, Abdurrehman, by the way, like compliments, and after that, by the way, it's like this, it's not like this. Be soft in the way you speak. Bro, you're going to go to Jahannam, bro. This is so easy, man. You should know how to do this already. What did your parents teach you? You're going to kafir. It's not going to be receptive, It's not going to be receptible advice. You're not going to want to take it. So compliments, private, take them to the side. Advise them in ways that are soft and indirect. If you can't be soft and indirect, be blunt, but be soft in your bluntness as well. And then after that, back it up with some sort of evidence, right? For example, you may have someone that's smoking something. Hey bro, this is haram, by the way. It's bad for you, After you've done your part, and you've applied all these things for the most part, and you've done your best to be soft, and, we talked about this, relatability is credibility. They'd be like, yo, one time I used to do this too, but then I realized it wasn't helping me. Whatever the case is, put yourself in that shoes and give them the story, whatever that makes them, hey, this person was also in my scenario. After you've done that, you've done your part. If that person is receptive, they're taking your advice, oh, it's amazing. It's in your reward as well. But if they don't take your advice, it's still your reward for doing your best to do so, but you've done your part. Now after this, you did your part, you addressed that which is wrong. You can still try if you want to afterwards, but if you know it's not going to go anywhere, you did your part and let Allah handle the rest. Make sense?
But about the compliment, instead of starting off by complimenting them, and then try to promote that like small.
Yeah. Even like even as a kid, if you tell a kid like, hey, you pray, I was telling the kid today, I was with my sheikh in the masjid, and his son, we were telling him to do something, he didn't want to do it. I told him, yo, I'll buy you Mr. Beast Feastables afterwards, you know? And right away he did it, you know? So having that compliment, it automatically opens that person's arms up or heart up to that advice, because you're introducing them, and you're starting off with everyone likes a compliment. I like a compliment, he likes a compliment, you like a compliment, everyone likes a compliment. So it's gonna make them smile, the mood's gonna be lighter, they're gonna be smiling, they're not gonna be worried about what you're about to say. It lightens the mood, which then makes them more receptible to your advice. That's one thing I've noticed personally that helps a lot. Did I answer your question? Sorry.
I appreciate it.
No worries.
Would you say it also depends on the situation and circumstance and who you're talking to?
100%. That's why I asked her if she could present the scenario, because the order may be different sometimes. Sometimes some things may need to be taken out. Perhaps it's your friend that's doing something very, very wrong. Perhaps hardcore drugs example. I can't. I saw this guy shooting up on this. No, you have to be. Stop doing this. You have to be direct in the way you speak. It's a case by case thing, and that's where your wisdom as an individual comes in as to, okay, who is this person? What's my relation with this person? If I tell my mom, she's right there, right? If I tell her mama, it's like this, not like this for Quran, right? She might yell at me, she might not yell at me, But we'll get it over with, right? That's my mom, I can talk to her. But if some random nobody that I've never seen in my life, it's my first time coming to the masjid, and I'm correcting him, yes, granted it's the same advice that I'm giving, right? But I don't know this dude. So what reason am I there to correct him? I should just walk and go mind my business, I can't just go to every random person, start correcting them, and be the hero to everyone's story. That's where your wisdom comes in as a Muslim. When to approach people, who to approach, who not to approach, how to approach them, what to say to them. Maybe sometimes you might need to speak to someone and hit something personal, just to get the message across. It varies from case by case. It varies in the severity of what you're advising them in. And at the same time, it varies also based on the relation with who it is, Ahmed comes up to me, cracks jokes, and he violates me, cool, I laugh with him, But if Ahmed goes up to someone that he doesn't know and says, we look like a buffoon or something, they're going to stop him across the way, It varies from case to case. But that's the general consensus of things that the scholars as well, they've seen that it helps, Any other questions? Comments, concerns? Did you learn something?
Sorry,
Yeah. Did you learn something? Any questions, inshallah? Everyone's good? My sincerest apologies, guys, once again. I was coming from pretty far, from Edison, Jersey. So it took me a while to get here. Inshallah, next time I won't be late. If I do, then she'll yell at me. But yeah, inshallah, my apologies. Any questions, I'll still be here. Anything personal, I'll still be here, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept this gathering and to allow us to apply this into our lives and increase our knowledge. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the Firdaus. Jazakumullah khairan.